Unit 18, Exercise 2. A. The first ancient Olympic Games were held in 776 BC. B. King Shalmaneser IV of Assyria died in 772 BC. C. Do you know why the Olympic Games were banned in 393 AD? D. The year 1859 started on a Saturday. E. The 1992 presidential election was a contest between Bush and Clinton. F. Joseph married Anne on New Year's Day in 1830. G. 1896 was a leap year. H. In 2006, the World Wide Web Conference was held in Edinburgh, Scotland. I. The 1924 Summer Olympics were officially known as the Games of the 8th Olympiad. J. The first pentathlon was held in 708 BC. K. 1894 is the year that Riwai Maniapoto died. L. Where were the 2004 Olympic Games held? M. The Olympic Games in 2008 were held in Beijing.
Unit 18, Exercise 3. First, listen to the example. 1776. The answer is 1776. Now, listen and complete the rest of the table. A. 1654, 1654.
B. 423, 423.
C. 992, 992.
D. 1377, 1377.
E. 1532, 1532.
F. 859, 859.
G. 1229, 1229.
H. 1010, 1010.
I. 772, 772. Unit 18, Exercise 4. First, listen to the example. 1910. 1910. Now, complete the rest of the table. A. 1783, 1783.
B. 1873, 1873.
C. 1890, 1890.
D. 1900, 1900.
E. 1903, 1903.
F. 1905, 1905.
G. 1939, 1939.
H. 1950, 1950.
I. 1907, 1907.
Unit 18, Exercise 6. A. In 1801, punch card technology was introduced. B. The late 1950s and 60s saw the development of silicon chips, which led to the second generation of computers. C. Before 1833, Babbage designed a machine that could correctly calculate sums again and again. Unit 18, Exercise 7. First, listen to the example. Devoted. Unit 18, Exercise 8. Included. Added. Allowed. Founded. Permitted. Planned. Offered. Worked. Relied. Faced. Lasted. Managed. Demonstrated.
Unit 18, Exercise 9. A. In 708 BC, wrestling was included as an Olympic sport for the first time. B. Over time, other events such as boxing and horse racing were added. C. Women weren't allowed to watch or compete in the ancient Olympics. D. The International Olympic Committee was founded in 1894. E. In 1896, 241 athletes competed for medals. F. In 1924, women were finally permitted to compete. G. Organisers for the Beijing Olympics planned for 302 different events. H. The 2006 Winter Olympics offered 7 sports with 84 separate events.
Unit 18, Exercise 10. A. The first record of the Olympic Games dates back to 776 BC. B. In 708 BC, the pentathlon, a 5-sport event, was held for the first time. C. In 1924, women were finally permitted to compete. D. Until 1992, the Winter Olympics were held in the same year as the Summer Olympics. E. 2 brothers demonstrated their hot air balloon in June 1783 in France. F. By the end of the first decade of the 20th century, many people were trying to be the first to fly a plane. G. The first flight of a jet plane didn't take place until 1939.
Unit 18, Exercise 11. Listen to the example. In 1984, Apple launched the Macintosh. 1984 is in the period after World War II, so there is a tick in the third part of the table. Now listen and complete the table. A. The first completely electronic computer which could perform different tasks was built in the USA in 1945. B. In 1801, punch card technology was introduced. C. The late 1950s and 60s saw the development of silicon chips, which led to the second generation of computers. D. First-generation computers were developed during World War II. E. Before 1833, Babbage designed a machine that could correctly calculate sums again and again. F. About 100 years after Babbage, Alan Turing developed the idea of algorithms to solve problems. G. In Germany, Kruse completed the first general programmable calculator in 1941. H. The first mechanical calculators appeared in the 1600s. I. The third generation of computers began with the development of the microchip in 1971. J. By December 1943, the British had a computer known as Colossus to decode language. K. Throughout the 1980s, personal computers became increasingly popular for many tasks.
Unit 18, Exercise 13. You will hear a community sports officer talking about the history of the Olympic Games. Unit 18, Ielts Practice, Listening 1. You will hear a community sports officer talking about the history of the Olympic Games.
Hello everyone. This evening I'm going to give you a brief history of the Olympic Games. Then we'll look at some photos and film clips of great sporting moments from the past 100 or so years of the Games. The first record of the original Games in Greece dates back to 776 BC, where there was one 200-metre race. By 722 BC, there were 24 events. In 708 BC, the pentathlon was held for the first time. This was a 5-sport event. Wrestling was also included. Over time, other events such as boxing, horse races, and chariot racing were added. Women couldn't compete in any events. In fact, they were not even allowed to watch the Games. After a period of almost 1,170 years, the last of the ancient Games was held in 393 AD. There was then a long time with no further Olympic Games. During the 1830s, there was a campaign to revive the Games, with the first competition held in 1859, followed by some later Games also held in Greece. Then the International Olympic Committee was founded in 1894, with the first modern international games being held in 1896. A total of 241 athletes from 14 nations competed for gold, silver, and bronze. At the time, this was the biggest international sporting event ever held. From 1924, women were finally permitted to compete. Since 1896, there has been a gradual increase in the number of countries taking part and the number of sports included. At the Athens Summer Olympics in 2004, there were almost 11,100 athletes from 202 countries. Events such as the marathon, cycling, sailing, soccer, judo, canoeing, basketball, water polo, and rifle shooting have all been added to the modern Olympics. For the Beijing Olympics, planners planned for 302 events over 28 sports. The Winter Games were first held in 1924. Winter sports such as ice skating, ice hockey, bobsledding, and skiing were held. These were not traditional Olympic sports, of course, as the climate in Athens was not cold enough. Both the Summer Games and the Winter Games were held in the same year until 1992. Since that time, there has been a 2-year gap between them. The 2006 Winter Olympics offered 7 sports with 84 separate events. Right, now let's look at some early film clips of the great Olympic athletes.
Unit 18, Ielts Practice, Listening 2. You will hear a museum officer talking about the history of flight.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Tonight I'm going to give you a brief history of flight, then you can look more closely at the exhibition of pictures on the walls around you. As you probably know, men dreamt of flying for hundreds of years. Finally, two brothers demonstrated their hot air balloon in June 1783 in France, to the amazement of all who were watching. Later that year, in September 1783, the same men flew a hot air balloon with 3 passengers, a sheep, a rooster, and a duck. Their next flight, a month later, had 2 human passengers. In January 1784, they flew a giant balloon with 7 passengers to a height of approximately 1,000 meters. Over the next 100 or more years, various people devoted their lives to the mystery of flight. For example, an Englishman, Sir George Cayley, worked on it for more than 50 years until his death in 1857. There were several key problems that faced anyone wishing to fly. These included things like how to get the lift, to get the plane in the air, and how to power the plane without adding too much weight. By the first decade of the 20th century, there was a fascination with flying, and attempts to fly were being made in many parts of the world. Gliders had already been flown successfully in the 1890s, and the first successful airships flew in the early 1900s. The Wright brothers in America were the first to truly fly a fixed-wing plane in 1903. Their first flight was only 35 meters, but by 1905 they could stay in the air for 30 minutes and fly in a circle. Early planes relied solely on propellers. Although scientists had understood the principles of jet engines for ages, the first flight of a jet-driven plane didn't take place until 1939. By the 1950s, the use of jet engines in airplanes led to a revolution in airplane design. The idea of helicopters dates back through the ages, with various designers working on vertical flight, but lacking a lightweight engine with enough power to make it possible. The first successful manned flight by a helicopter took place in 1907, but only lasted very briefly. It was not until 1924 that a helicopter managed to fly for 14 minutes at a height of 15 meters. Finally, let's consider rockets and space travel.